Hello and welcome to the conversation. My name is Shannon Taylor. I'm your host, and we are returning with Alex Valentine, one of our favorite guests. We've been on the air 8 years. He's an expert on so many fields, but in particular the history we've been bringing up over most of our episodes. In the context of this series, which is, of course, presented from the research, knowledge, and expertise of our guest, we welcome all other opinions, whether agreeing or disagreeing. It is not the opinion necessarily of either your host or of the series or of the organization Blacks and Jews in Conversation, but we have presented and we serve the purpose of presenting many points of view from many places and many sources. And what you're going to hear is not only going to be exciting and stimulating, but part of the history that very few people get, and exactly what our organization hopes to provoke in thought. Alex.
Thank you very much, Taylor, for having me here today. Nestor Production Company, together with your organization, we would like to present, to start the series of episodes we named Pendulum. Why Pendulum? In several episodes, I will try to tell you some stories from the 20th century. It was a century of the two great world wars and several revolutions and a lot of troubles in Europe and the entire world. Also, it was so full of mysteries, puzzles, unknown and well-forgotten rumors. So why pendulums? History itself sometimes looks to me more and more like the one. When the humankind becomes enthusiastic about some left ideas of social justice and total equality, almost immediately a totalitarian dictatorship will follow. Left to right and back. Just like a pendulum, you know. So, today I will tell you how this century had started. The story how a great war, the First World War, had been waged. Of course, it's only my opinion, based on rumors, based on some speculations, historical research, but untraditional and maybe controversial. So you're very welcome with your opinions, and I would really appreciate any feedback from all of our listeners and viewers. Look at the facts. That's all what I'd like to ask you. Look at the facts, think and judge for yourself. I often think every century starts not that exact moment when a certain clock clings 12, but when things are ready to be changed and radically. For instance, 21st century came when Twin Towers got hit in New York. But today I'd like to speak about another century, the previous one, the 20th century. So it seems to me it had begun when First World War had started, and an old order got violently killed. But even before that, there also was one event that did change a lot. King Edward VII died, and those kings, all the kings of an old Europe, got together for his funeral. For the very last time they met all together in London. The 9 sovereigns are here on a photo. They met at Windsor for the funeral, and you can see, standing from left to right, King Haakon VII of Norway, Tsar Ferdinand of Bulgaria, King Manuel II of Portugal, Kaiser Wilhelm II of German Empire, King George I of Greece, and King Albert I of Belgium. Seated from left to right, King Alfonso XIII of Spain, King Emperor George V of the United Kingdom, and King Frederick VIII of Denmark. Of course, the date was May 20, 1910. But time itself seems to be the same. People still believed in rational knowledge, moral, ethical norms of the 19th century. Nobody could even imagine that the world is about to be changed violently. In a way, it was impossible to predict. But how did it all start? I think the event that triggered literally catastrophic changes in our world, infamous shots in Sarajevo, were described the best by Jaroslav Hasek in his book The Good Soldier's Wake. "And so they've killed our Ferdinand," said the charwoman to Mr. Schweik. "They bumped him off at Sarajevo, sir, with a revolver, you know. He drove in a car with his archduchess." Okay, let's speak about what happened before a little bit. And what were the reasons and what causes such huge consequences? To understand all these, we must go back in time. From 1914, maybe just a couple of years back, from the very beginning. So, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, son of the Emperor Franz Joseph, younger brother, the only heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, colonel of infantry, General Army Inspector, the highest rank in the army since 1913. Married, but marriage was morganatic, means legal, but children are not considered the heirs to the throne. Since 1906, Franz Ferdinand actively participates in decision-making and formed his own team for the several critical positions in the government. He was considered as a reformer, one of the creators of Austrian Navy, but strong opponent to the idea of new Slavic states creation on Balkans. He certainly preferred an idea of trialism instead of Austro-Hungarian dual empire, to create Austro-Hungary Slavia, triple empire. Conflicted with Imperial Prime Minister István Tisza, Magyar, whom he considered a revolutionary. Also was categorically against any war with Serbia, thought it could be a madness. Close friends, leaders of the Slavic people, here, Aurel C. Popovici, Romanian, Milan Hodja, Slovak, Jožo Sunarović, Croatian. Franz Ferdinand wrote, "War with Russia would be an end for all us. Don't think that Russian and Austro-Hungarian emperors must dethrone each other and open the way for revolutions." That's exactly what happened, by the way. At that time, in Serbia, nationalist mood rose enormously. May 28 or June 11, 1903, in Belgrade, a military coup happened. King Alexander Abramovich and his queen Draga were brutally murdered by a group of officers headed by Colonel Dragutin Dmitrievich, aka Apis, or B. The last became a head of Serbian military intelligence and still was the leader of the nationalistic organization Black Hand. Here is their seal. You see, it's more like high school children games, but it wasn't a game, believe me. So, he was closely connected to the Russian military intelligence through his chief of station, a Russian military agent in Belgrade, Colonel Viktor Artamonov. Here he is. So, why did those Serbs want to neutralize Franz Ferdinand? Well, no matter how paradoxally this may sound, but he was the most serious obstacle to the maniacal idea of the great Serbia from sea to shiny sea. They declared and followed with all their hearts. They wanted just to incorporate into Kingdom of Serbia all lands where the Slavs lived, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and all other Austrian territories. Of course, such a scenario would become totally impossible if Austro-Hungary Slavia would be created according to Franz Ferdinand's plan. That's why Franz Ferdinand had to be killed no matter what. Entire Bosnia was literally stuffed by agents of Serbian government, and they were pretty well trained and supplied. Not without the help from Russian intelligence, mechanics was more or less clear. Grand Duke Nikolai Nikolaevich Romanov considered himself a great military commander, as you can see. And he, and especially his wife, happened to be Montenegrin princess, literally itched to head a successful military campaign. Desirably to conquer Dardanelles, Bosphorus, what else? Maybe Berlin, maybe Vienna. Well, another hoax. Sazonov, foreign minister. Grigory Nikolaevich Trubetskoy, chief of Mediterranean section of the Russian Foreign Office, and the chief of Russian Army's General Staff, General Nikolai Nikolaevich Yanushkevich. So you see that this is a clear chain of command and a way to build a conspiracy. Franz Ferdinand's visit to Sarajevo was scheduled on Vidovdan, the day when Serbia got defeated very badly at Kosovo. So, June 28, 1914, he had to visit troops exercises. His route was never widely published in local newspapers. So, Serbian conspirators were able to plan everything well in advance. It happened that Archduke had no additional bodyguards at all. There also were no additional police forces whatsoever. Why? Couple of years after this story, Apis confessed to the Serbian court that he ordered the assassination of Franz Ferdinand in his position as a chief of intelligence department. The assassination was planned with the knowledge and approval of the Russian ambassador in Belgrade, Nikolai Hartwig, another hawk, and the Russian military attaché, we already seen, Viktor Artemonov. Ilich, who happened to be the associate of Draganovich, recruited the Serbian youth shortly after Easter. Gavrilo Princip, at about the same time, a little after Easter, they were eager to carry out an assassination and approached Major Tankosic and reached an agreement to transport arms to Sarajevo and to participate in assassination. It's a long story. Now, the rest of the weapons were finally delivered on May 26. You see the route, how it was delivered. Major Tankosic confirmed to the journalist and historian Luciano Magrini that he provided the bombs and pistols and was responsible for training Princip, Grabesh, and Kabrinovich, and that he initiated the idea of suicide pills. Princip, Gabrish, and Chabrinovich left Belgrade by boat on May 28 and traveled along the Sava River, you can see on the map. When arrived to Sarajevo, June 4th, Princip checked in with Ilich, visited his family, and returned to Sarajevo. Gabrinovich moved back into his father's house in Sarajevo. Mehmet Bašić told Albertini, on the eve of the outrage, Ilich introduced me to Princip in Sarajevo Cafe with the words, Mehmet Bašić, who tomorrow is to be with us. This sent a postcard to Black Hand Provincial Director for Bosnia and Herzegovina, Vladimir Gachinovich in France. The following morning, June 28, Ilich positioned the sixth assassin along the motorcade route. On the morning, June 28, Franz Ferdinand and his party proceeded by train from Ilija Spa to Sarajevo. Governor Oscar Potjoric met the party at Sarajevo station. 3 local police officers got into the first car with the chief officer of special security, Franz Ferdinand Sophie, Governor Potiorek, and Lieutenant Colonel Count Franz von Harrach rode in the third car. The motorcade first stop on the pre-announced program was for a brief inspection of a military barracks. According to program, at 10 a.m. the motorcade was to leave the barracks for the town hall by way of Apple Quay. You see it on the map again. So, have to admit that security arrangements within Sarajevo were very limited. Protection for the visiting party was accordingly left to the Sarajevo police, of whom only 60 were on duty on the day of visit. Now, the motorcade, as you can see, it passed the first assassin, Mehmed Bashic. Danilo Ilic had placed him in front of the garden of the Mostar Cafe and armed him with a bomb. Mehmed Bashic failed to act. Ilic placed Vasa Chubrilovic next to Mehmed Bashic, arming him with a pistol and a bomb. He too failed to act. At 10:10, Franz Ferdinand's car approached and Gabrinovich threw his bomb. The bomb bounced off the folded back convertible cover into the street, or somebody just threw it away. The bomb detonator caused it to explode under the next car, putting that car out of action, leaving a crater and wounding 16 to 20 other people bystanders. Gabrinovich swallowed his cyanide pill and jumped into the river. Suicide attempt failed, and river was about 13 centimeters over there. So police dragged him out, and he was severely beaten by the crowd before being taken into custody. Good custom, I would say. The procession sped away towards the town hall, leaving the disabled car behind. Svetka Popovich, Gavrilo Princip, and Trifon Grabish failed to act as the motorcade passed them at high speed. Arriving at the town hall for a scheduled reception, Franz Ferdinand showed understandable signs of stress, interrupting a prepared speech of welcome by Mayor to protest. "Mr. Mayor, I came here on a visit and I get bombs thrown at me. It's outrageous." Day was not over yet. There was a proposal that the couple remain at the town hall until troops could be brought into the city to life. Franz Ferdinand and Sophie gave up their planned program in favor of visiting the wounded from the bombing at the hospital. At 10:45, Franz Ferdinand and Sophia got back into their car, a roof still folded, and they drove to the city center. However, the driver took a right turn into Franz Josef Street. The Sarajevo chief of police, Edmund Gerde, who had earlier repeatedly protested about the lack of security, was asked to tell the drivers of the new route, but in the confusion and tensions of the moment neglected to do so. Around all this confusion, the driver stopped the car close to where Princip was standing prior to backing up. The latter stepped forward and fired 2 shots from a distance of about 1.5 meters using Belgian-made semi-automatic Browning pistol. The first bullet, according to Albertini, wounded the Archduke in the jugular vein. The second inflicted an abdominal wound on the Duchess. Princip was, of course, immediately arrested. Princip stated at his sentencing that his intention was being to kill Governor Potiorek rather than Sophie. Both victims remained seated upright, but died while driving to the governor's residence for medical treatment. As reported by Count Harrach, Franz Ferdinand's last words were, "Sophie, Sophie, don't die. Live for our children." Sophie was dead on arrival. Franz Ferdinand died 10 minutes later. Well, the consequences of these assassins were, first of all, July 23rd, Austro-Hungarian issued an ultimatum to the government of Serbia. While the world waited for Serbian response, Germany worked diplomatically to contain the effects of the ultimatum. But None of the other great powers with reasons were inclined to see Austro-Hungary with its relatively weak military as acting alone. By 1914, battle lines were drawn in Europe. If Germany stood with Austro-Hungary against Serbia, and by extension with Russia, then Russian allies, France and Britain, would be likely to step into the fray as well. The British cabinet, just after receiving the news of the Austrian nod to Serbia, held a meeting in London. This nod, as Winston Churchill famously wrote, was clearly an ultimatum, but it was an ultimatum such as had never been penned in modern times. As the reading proceeded, it seemed absolutely impossible that any state in the world could accept it, or that any acceptance, however abject, would satisfy the aggressor. The parishes of Ferdinand and Tyrone faded back into the mists and squalls of Ireland, and a strange light began to fall upon. So, as you can see, the British exaggerated the situation. Serbia already accepted the ultimatum, with exception of allowing the Austrian to participate in investigation. But nevertheless, on receipt of the ultimatum, Serbia at once appealed to Russia, whose Council of Ministers met on July 24th to determine the course of action. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Sazonov voiced his belief that Germany was using the crisis over the Archduke's death as a pretext for starting a preventive war to defend its interest in the region. The Council agreed to order 4 military districts to prepare for mobilization. Mobilization means war. It's a customary in 20th century. Meanwhile, in Belgrade, on the afternoon of July 25th, convinced that Austro-Hungary was preparing for a fight, Serbian Prime Minister Nikola Pasic ordered the Serbian army to mobilize. Pasic himself delivered the Serbian answer to the ultimatum to Gislingen at the Austrian embassy just before the 6 p.m. deadline. Serbia's response effectively accepted all the terms of the ultimatum but one: it would not accept Austro-Hungarian participation in any internal inquiry, as I said. All right, this response did much to appeal Pasic and his country to international observers of the conflict. To Vienna, however, it made little difference. Gislingen, bags packed and car waiting to drive him to the railroad station, broke the dual monarchy diplomatic relation with Serbia and left to catch his train. 3 days later, July 28, 1914, Austro-Hungary declared war on Serbia, beginning the First World War. But even then, the European war could be prevented. If only there were some people in key position in Russia willing to avoid the bloodshed. Unfortunately, there were no such people anymore. First, Sazonov allowed Russian ambassadors in Berlin and Vienna to take a vacation. Wilhelm II tries to convince Nicholas II not to begin mobilization, not to take the fight. According to the Schlieffen Plan, Germany doesn't want to attack Russia. She's supposed to advance toward France. July 29, Sazonov pushed Tsar hard enough to start a partial mobilization, but after another cable from Wilhelm, mobilization was cancelled. July 30th, General Yanushkevich came to Tsar and lies to him. He said that Germans already started mobilization of their own, but that was a lie. This information he got from the message sent from Berlin by Russian journalist Markov. Russian ambassador in Berlin is not at his place, but military attaché categorically denied those rumors altogether. There is no mobilization, was his cable to Russian. But Yanushkevich insists he's got a full and unconditional support of Grand Duke Nikolai Nikolaevich so far, and can fear nothing. Nicholas II orders total mobilization. Even at this very moment, it is still possible to play everything back. Wilhelm II issues another ultimatum. If Russia will stop its mobilization in the next 12 hours, but Nicholas II did nothing, and General Yanushkevich switched his telephone off and disappears completely. And another 12 hours, the last peaceful 12 hours of the 19th century, I would say, passed. Then German Ambassador Portales came to Sazonov and 3 times asked him, "Is Russia ready to cancel its mobilization?" And Sazonov 3 times answered, "No way." Then Portales passed to Sazonov the last note. Now the war had been declared. 8:00 p.m., August 1st, 1914. So the declaration of war happened. And I would like to end this episode with a quote from memoirs penned by Grand Duke Alexander Mikhailovich in Paris. First, the major reason for the worldwide conflict was sharp competition between Germany and Britain for dominance on the sea and common effort by parties of war in Berlin, Vienna, Paris, London, and St. Petersburg. In case if Gavrilo Princip wouldn't assassinate Archduke, international warmongers would invent another case. Wilhelm II wished to start big war before Russian military program would be accomplished. That was scheduled for 1917. Emperor Nicholas did everything he could to prevent war, but practically no help from his surrounding, and especially nor from his Minister of Defense and Chief of General Staff. And finally, up to the midnight of July 31st, 1914, British government could prevent a worldwide catastrophe. All what had to be done was to state clearly that the United Kingdom will fight the war on the side of France and Russia. So, Sarajevo, beautiful city, the place where Serbs, Bosnian, Croatian, Albanian used to live in peace. But First World War was conceived there, and so was another bloody conflict at the end of the 20th century. Let's just listen. Czech folk singer Jaromir Nohavica sings about Sarajevo, and I said goodbye, good night, and good luck to all of you. Thank you for watching.
Přes haličské pláně vane vítr zlý, to málo, co jsme měli, nám vody sebrali, jako tažní ptáci, jako rolísi. Letíme nad zemí, 2 modré dopisy. Ještě hoří oheň a praská dřevo, ale už je čas jít spát. Támhle za kopcem je Sarajevo, tam budeme se zítra ráno brát. Farář v kostele nás sváže na věky, věnec tamarišku pak hodí do řeky. Voda popluje zpátky do moře, my 2 tady dole a nebe nahoře. Ještě hoří oheň a praská dřevo, ale už je čas jít spát. Tamhle za kopcem je Sarajevo, tam budeme se zítra ráno brát. Postavím ti dům z bílého kamení, dubovými prkny on bude roubený, aby každý věděl, že jsem tě měl rád. Postavím ho pevný, na věky bude stát. Ještě hoří oheň a praská dřevo, ale už je čas jít spát. Tamhle za kopcem je Sarajevo, tam zítra budeme se, lásko, brát.